night of September 11th to 12th, 2015, downtown Curitiba. On the 31st floor of a high-rise building where silence usually reigned, a dull thud shattered the quiet. Moments later, residents gathered beneath the windows. Someone yelled, someone dialed the emergency rescue service. In a few minutes, the police dispatch received a call from a man. "My girlfriend has jumped out the window." When officers arrived at the scene, they found the courtyard cordoned off and the body of a young woman on the pavement. Her identification revealed the name Renata Mugiati, age 31. The man who reported the tragedy introduced himself as Raphael Marcus. He seemed agitated, yet he held his composure. Detectives examined the apartment. The spacious rooms were saturated with the smell of alcohol and signs of disorder. On the table stood an unfinished bottle. On the floor lay a woman's shoe and a cell phone. The bedroom window was wide open, the curtains fluttering in the breeze. The windowsill appeared too high for a mere accidental fall. In one corner stood a small shelf, which, according to Raphael's account, Renata had climbed up and jumped. Police meticulously documented the scene. Although there were no signs of a struggle, the details revealed a disturbing atmosphere. Scattered belongings, a broken necklace, handprints on the window frame. Everything pointed toward a carefully staged scenario, rather than the impulsive act of a desperate woman. When the body was transported to the morgue and Raphael was escorted in for questioning, no one yet realized this was just the beginning. A story where behind the mask of love lay aggression, and beneath the appearance of success, the systematic destruction of a person. From that moment, the countdown began leading up to that fateful night, which ended Renata's life. Renata Mugiati was born and raised in the state of Paraná. From a young age, she stood out for her discipline and determination. After finishing school, she chose to study physical education and earned a diploma. In sports, she found her calling. She trained in bodybuilding and gradually transitioned into the professional body fitness category. Her efforts quickly paid off. Renata became champion of Paraná, won Brazilian championships 3 times, and earned the title of South American champion. In the early 2010s, Renata started a blog on social media, sharing her workout secrets and talking about her contest preparation. Her toned physique, iron discipline, and openness attracted many followers, and her subscriber count surged. This led to partnerships with sports nutrition companies and fitness brands. She became known as a fitness muse and was able to support herself entirely from what she loved doing. Besides competing, Renata worked as a personal trainer. Her schedule was so packed, she often had to turn away new clients. She lived alone in her own apartment, together with 2 dogs, and valued her independence. To many women, she was a role model of strength and purpose, a woman who built a career without outside help. No one could then imagine that the life of this strong and confident woman would end in circumstances that revealed her vulnerability. In 2014, at the height of her fitness career, Renata Mugiati met Raphael Marcus. They were both 31. Raphael was an endocrinologist specializing in hormone therapy and metabolism. In his professional circle, he was known as ambitious and self-assured, with a roster of clients from the athletic world. He claimed to have consulted top-tier athletes and often described himself as the doctor of champions. Their connection began online. Renata came across a photo of a fit, attractive man, followed his profile, and left a comment. He replied almost immediately. The messages turned into dates, and soon they were in a relationship. They shared a passion for fitness, discipline, and similar goals. For Renata, it felt like a natural continuation of her path, being with someone who understood an athlete's needs and could support her career. Things moved fast. Within just a few months, Renata moved into Raphael's apartment on Visconde de Guarapuava Avenue in downtown Curitiba. The spacious unit on the 31st floor became their shared home. To the outside world, they looked like the perfect couple, successful, attractive, and in control of their lives. But behind the polished surface, Raphael's behavior began to change. He insisted on overseeing every aspect of Renata's training and diet, even though she was a certified professional in her own right. He began micromanaging small details: what time she came home, what she wore, who she interacted with. At first, it seemed like concern, but it quickly became clear that it was something else: control. Raphael constantly reminded her of how much he contributed to her success. Renata, used to her independence, began to give in, trying to avoid arguments. The autonomy she had worked so hard to build was slowly eroded in a relationship where all decisions were made by him. To friends and acquaintances, Raphael remained charming, polite, and confident. But to Renata, he became increasingly demanding, intolerant of disagreement, determined to dictate every part of her life. What once looked like a partnership built for success turned into a path that slowly stripped her of personal freedom. Over time, the dynamic between them deteriorated. The initial care turned into absolute control. Friends, co-workers, and even clients started to disappear from her life, unable to cope with the constant restrictions Raphael imposed. He had fully taken over not just her personal life, but her professional one as well. He blocked new contracts, demanded she remove older content, insisting he alone had the right to shape her image. Any pushback triggered episodes of rage. Eventually, Raphael convinced Renata that she was unwell and needed treatment, even though she had no history of psychological issues. Without consulting any mental health professionals, he began prescribing her antidepressants and potent sedatives on his own. Over time, Renata became increasingly passive, emotionally numb, and lost the focus and drive that had once defined her athletic life. By mid-2015, Renata's appearance had changed dramatically. Following Raphael's instructions, she began refusing food, losing weight at an alarming rate. Her rapid decline worried those close to her, but he barely allowed her to stay in touch with them. Under the pretense of care, Raphael completely isolated her, gaining control over her both physically and emotionally. The home that was supposed to be her safe place had turned into the very space where a strong, confident woman slowly lost not only her strength, but her ability to fight back. By the middle of 2015, Renata was no longer the vibrant athlete people remembered. The once powerful and radiant competitor had withered to a shadow of herself. In just a few months, her weight had dropped from around 155 to barely 110 pounds. In photos taken shortly before the tragedy, her face appeared hollow, her muscles weakened, and her eyes lifeless. She stopped showing up at the gym, the place that had once been her second home. Clients tried to reach her, but calls went unanswered, messages unread. Her social media, once full of workout routines and motivational posts, went silent. For her followers, that sudden silence was the first clear sign that something was terribly wrong. Her family had noticed the changes even earlier. Her sister and mother said Renata had become distant, speaking carefully, as if afraid to say too much. When they did manage to reach her by phone, her voice sounded subdued, restrained, stripped of its usual energy. Gradually, Renata lost more than just her health. She lost her sense of self. With no support system left, she lived according to a schedule that wasn't her own. Even her presence seemed to fade, like someone who no longer made her own choices. Her decline wasn't sudden. It was a slow unraveling, a gradual erosion where physical weakness mirrored complete dependency. On September 8, 2015, Raphael called the police, saying he couldn't get into his apartment. He claimed the door was locked from the inside and that no one was answering. Officers arrived and helped him open the door. Inside, in the bedroom, they found Renata unconscious on the floor. Nearby were a bottle of alcohol and several packs of medication. Raphael told officers she had likely attempted to take her own life. Paramedics examined her and noted drowsiness, but no tests were done to check for any substances in her system. The incident was officially recorded as an attempted self-harm. After a brief check, Renata was left at home. Later, investigators would consider this episode a turning point, the moment Raphael began deliberately shaping the image of Renata as emotionally unstable. A few days after the incident, strange posts appeared on her social media accounts, short, farewell-like messages. Her followers immediately noticed how out of character they were, nothing like Renata's usual tone. The posts disappeared as quickly as they appeared. No screenshots were captured, but several people confirmed they had seen them. At the time, her loved ones believed Renata truly was in a fragile state. But later, after investigators recovered deleted data and reviewed her messages, they discovered that Raphael had access to her phones and knew all her passwords. Investigators later suspected that the incident might have been part of a carefully planned sequence of events. Raphael's behavior seemed unusually calculated. Instead of calling emergency medical services right away, he first contacted the police, ensuring an official record was made. That move allowed him to establish a narrative of Renata's supposed emotional instability long before the tragic night that followed. The events of September 8th were later viewed as the first attempt at staging a scene. No proof was ever found that Renata had taken any medication voluntarily. There were also no clear signs of forced administration, which left open the possibility that she had simply been sedated. After that night, Raphael began frequently telling people that Renata was struggling mentally, creating a background story that would later serve as the foundation of his defense. The night that began with a locked door call turned out to be a rehearsal, a test run for what would soon repeat itself, this time with no chance of rescue. On the evening of September 11th, 2015, Raphael and Renata went out together to a private club, one of his regular spots where he played pool and drank. Witnesses said they barely spoke that night. He appeared tense. She seemed withdrawn. Around midnight, they left. Surveillance footage showed Raphael walking slightly ahead, never once looking back. At 12:28 a.m., the couple returned to their apartment on the 31st floor. About an hour later, Raphael claimed he went out briefly to get some drinks, returning around 12:54 a.m. with a bottle of beer. Around that time, neighbors heard loud arguing that quickly escalated into shouting. The confrontation went on for at least 20 minutes before everything went silent. Then came the sound of blows, followed by a woman's cries. At 2:27 a.m., Raphael took several photos on his phone. In those pictures, Renata is seen sitting on the windowsill, her legs hanging outside as she holds on to the frame. These photos later became critical evidence, as the timestamp matched the final minutes of Renata's life. Raphael claimed he was trying to stop her, but the photos suggested he was merely watching. Between 2:27 and 2:37 a.m., something happened that changed the course of the investigation. Forensic experts determined that during this 10-minute window, Renata had stepped away from the window, put on sweatpants and sneakers. According to investigators, that's when Raphael came up from behind her and applied pressure to her neck. The autopsy revealed a fractured hyoid bone and compression marks, inconsistent with a fall. These findings indicated that Renata lost her life due to strangulation before her body ever left the window. Afterward, he allegedly moved her body toward the open window, used a nearby shelf for leverage, bent her limbs, and pushed her outward. At that moment, he shouted something in a voice meant to imitate hers, so neighbors would hear what sounded like a cry of despair. At 2:47 a.m., he called the police and reported that his girlfriend had jumped from the window. Raphael's behavior after that call raised further questions. He phoned his parents first, then his therapist, before contacting emergency services again. When responders arrived, he appeared calm and composed, repeating one line over and over. She was depressed. She didn't want to live anymore. From that moment on, investigators began piecing together the final hours of Renata's life. The photos discovered on Raphael's phone, the lack of signs of a struggle near the scene, and the mismatch between the injuries on her body and the reported cause of death, all pointed to the same unsettling truth. What happened that night wasn't self-inflicted. What began as a silent argument ended in a calculated act, deliberately staged to look like a tragic accident. The initial investigation was launched the very same night. Renata's body was taken to the Institute of Forensic Medicine, where the autopsy was assigned to a doctor named Daniel Komen. Strangely, although he had previously notified his supervisors that he was out sick, he suddenly showed up for duty. His involvement would later raise serious concerns. The official report, released shortly after the examination, claimed that her death was the result of a fall from a great height and stated there were no signs of external aggression. The document concluded that Renata had taken her own life while in a state of deep emotional distress. This report quickly made its way into the media, shaping the public narrative and giving the impression that the case was closed. However, colleagues within the forensic department noted something off. The report had been uploaded from a computer belonging to a former employee who'd previously been dismissed for document tampering. That discovery triggered an internal audit, though it was never formally addressed. At the same time, rumors began to circulate that someone might have paid to have the self-harm narrative confirmed. Renata's family never believed the results of the initial autopsy. When they saw her body, they noticed markings not mentioned in the report: bruising on her neck and arms, abrasions on her face. When they asked for clarification, they were told these injuries were consistent with a fall. The staff's responses were noticeably guarded, as if they were under pressure. Meanwhile, Raphael's family, well connected in the local medical community, actively spread claims that Renata had been struggling emotionally. Their narrative was supported by Raphael himself, who publicly stated that he had been trying to help her. The combination of a rushed forensic conclusion and these public statements helped solidify a version of events that worked in Raphael's favor. And so, two versions of the truth emerged: the official one, that she ended her life, and the real one, the one her family was now forced to prove from scratch, fighting against a system where the first documents could easily determine the outcome. Refusing to accept the official story, Renata's sister, Tina Gabriel, took the lead. She began gathering every document she could: photos, messages, witness statements. A respected attorney from Paraná, Claudio Deldon Jr., joined the case. He was the first to publicly challenge the official version, stating that the evidence clearly contradicted the claims of self-harm. Tina gave the lawyer a set of photos Renata had taken just 3 days before her death. They showed bruises on her face and legs, a cut on her ear, and clear signs of physical trauma. In private messages to a confidant, Renata admitted she was being abused by her partner, but said she was too afraid to report it. These materials formed the foundation of a legal motion demanding a second autopsy. The court approved an exhumation, and in 2016, Renata's body was re-examined by an independent team of forensic experts. The new findings completely overturned the original report. It was determined that Renata's heart had stopped beating before the fall, a detail confirmed by the absence of bleeding in her injuries. These revelations changed everything. The initial autopsy by Daniel Komen was officially ruled invalid, and the investigation was reclassified. No longer a case of self-inflicted harm, but now a full criminal inquiry. Tina's determination, along with the attorney's persistence, became the turning point that ensured Renata's death was no longer seen as an accident, but as the result of cruel and deliberate aggression. When Renata's case was reopened, investigators turned their attention to Raphael's past, and what they found suggested this wasn't an isolated incident. Police records revealed a prior report filed by another woman he had briefly been involved with before meeting Renata. She had given birth to his son and claimed she had experienced physical aggression during their time together. The incident dated back to December 2014. Raphael had gone to visit his former partner to pick up his son for the holidays. An argument broke out and quickly escalated into a physical altercation. The woman went to the police and documented her injuries. A medical report confirmed signs of trauma, and multiple neighbors backed up her story. In court, Raphael denied everything, claiming the accusations were fabricated, but the medical evidence and eyewitness testimonies told a different story. The court found him guilty and sentenced him to 4 months. He was allowed to serve the sentence under electronic monitoring. This event showed that what happened to Renata wasn't a one-time loss of control. It was part of a consistent pattern of behavior. Further investigation uncovered more complaints from other women who had been briefly involved with Raphael. They described similar red flags, bursts of aggression, threats, and an obsessive need for control. For the prosecution, this supported the argument that Renata's death could not have been a spontaneous act. Raphael's behavior fit a pattern of repeated, deliberate cruelty, hidden beneath the polished image of a successful professional. After the second autopsy, the legal battle dragged on for nearly 8 years. The trial faced constant delays, new judges being appointed, witnesses failing to appear, and motions filed by the defense. During all this, Raphael continued practicing medicine, seeing patients as though nothing had happened, despite the serious charges against him. Renata's family frequently spoke out about what they saw as manipulation and behind-the-scenes pressure. One controversy that drew major public attention involved attorney Claudio Del Don Jr. He had been representing Renata's family, but at the same time, he was involved in another high-profile case, defending a man accused in a similar incident involving a woman named Tatiana Spitzer. When this conflict of interest became public, Renata's sister, Tina Gabriel, ended their legal relationship with Deldon and successfully pushed for a new prosecutor to be appointed. Throughout the hearings, Raphael often showed blatant disregard for the court. At one session, he requested to be excused due to work commitments, but it was later revealed he had spent that time participating in a poker tournament. That incident led the judge to revoke his freedom and order him into custody until the final verdict was reached. By January 2019, Raphael was placed in a detention center where he awaited trial. Only then did the case finally move toward its conclusion. Numerous motions filed by the defense were denied, and the trial entered its final phase. The prosecution presented all of the gathered evidence, including photographs, expert reports, and eyewitness accounts that pointed directly to Raphael's guilt. In February 2023, a jury in Curitiba delivered its verdict in the case of Renata Mugiati. After reviewing the full scope of the evidence and hearing from witnesses, the court found Raphael Sousmarkis guilty of intentionally taking the life of his partner. He was convicted on multiple charges, including committing a crime motivated by gender, inflicting physical harm, denying the victim any chance to defend herself, and tampering with evidence. The jury reached a unanimous decision. Renata's death was not self-inflicted. Raphael Sousmarkis was sentenced to 31 years in a high-security prison. His appeal was denied, and the sentence became final. For Renata's family, the ruling represented a partial restoration of justice. They emphasized that their fight had lasted 8 long years and demanded tremendous strength and perseverance. The public responded with applause, and the Mugiati case became a powerful symbol in the fight against domestic aggression. An example of how determination, even in the face of pressure and attempts to bury the truth, can change the outcome of an investigation.